Happy 20th anniversary. I'm so honored to be a part of this tribute because one of the first projects that I worked on when I joined the U.S. Department of Labor Women's Bureau in San Francisco was the dedication of the Rosie the Riveter Memorial. It was from those early efforts that the Homefront National Park was created to be a powerful reminder of women's significant contribution during World War II. In fact, one of their Liberty ships that the Rosies helped build safely carried my father from San Francisco to Australia to New Guinea and then back to Long Beach after the war. I'm forever grateful to you for your seaworthy vessels that provided safe passage for so many soldiers. Thank you, Rosies, for your skills and your homefront patriotism. This memorial and park have likewise inspired me to discover and document my own family's World War II story. Thank you, National Park Service, for creating the Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront Park to both educate and inspire young and old.
Happy anniversary, Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park. You are a treasure. You tell us the stories and help us remember the sacrifices and hard work of people of the Homefront during World War II. I especially treasure that work. I am the son of a Homefront worker. My father lost his business during the Great Depression, and when the war broke out, he was too old for military service. And so he retrained, became a tool and die maker, and helped build aircraft throughout the war years. And for the rest of his life, he was very proud of what he did during those years. You help us remember, you teach our children, you teach our grandchildren, and you will be doing that for decades to come. I wish you all the success in the world.
Morgan Smith thinking about the relevance of Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park. When I think of the park and the relevance of the park, I think about two words: legacy and inspiration. So legacy, there is all that was achieved here, all the ships that were built, all the support for the World War II effort, all the buildings that are still here today, but also there is the cultural legacy. People coming from around the world, different races, different cultures, different genders working together, and they had to hash out many different issues around that. And then there's the inspiration piece, that today we face many challenges that have to be solved as a society. And we look back on in time, we see that sometimes it's messy. That isn't always a forward progression. You move back to move forward. Sometimes when you're in it, you don't see the progress, but then you look back and see all that has been achieved. And so the stories that the park and the trust tell can help inspire us to come together and solve these big issues of society today.
Greetings and welcome to the Rosie the Riveter Trust 13th annual fundraiser and first virtual fundraiser. We are delighted to have you here. My name is Diane Hedler and I am president of Rosie the Riveter Trust, and I am the MC today. It is very fitting that we have started here at the Rosie the Riveter Memorial. The city of Richmond built this in order to honor the women. What happened is they wanted this noted nationally. The National Park Service came to Richmond to look at this designation. They saw that there were many buildings and sites left from the World War II home front and felt that this was a perfect place to have a national park. It tells the national story of all the things that happened as far as building, but all the social changes that started during World War II. This memorial was built and started and dedicated on October 14th, 2000. At that time, sitting on President Bill Clinton's desk was the park legislation. He signed it on October 24th, 2000. So this is our 20th anniversary. The Trust is privileged to partner with the National Park Service in raising funds and preserving this park. For many years, Marcia Mather-Thrift was our employee and executive director. She was the very first executive director that the Rosie the Riveter Trust ever had. And at that point in time, when Marcia came in, she began to really work very, very hard to develop the programs that the Trust works on with the National Park Service. Rosie's Girls, Every Kid in the Park, now called Every Kid Outdoors, and also the film on Betty Soskin, which is called No Time to Waste, that's getting a lot of notoriety around the country and around the world. Betty is our 98-year-old park ranger. In 2019, Marcia decided to retire after many years with the Trust, and so we had to go out and try and find another executive director. And that executive director we hired is Sarah Pritchard. So right now, I would like to introduce you to Sarah Pritchard.
Thank you, Diane. Hello and welcome to 20 Years of Rosie Spirit. Thank you for joining us today, and more importantly, thank you for all the ways you support our national park. I'm thrilled to be part of Rosie the Riveter Trust. As the new executive director, I'm so grateful to help commemorate our country's home front story in this unique urban park located here in Richmond, California. At the Trust, we have a fantastic staff, an incredibly supportive board of directors, and most enthusiastic volunteers who really do portray the "we can do it" spirit. When we were first called to shelter in place due to COVID-19, we knew we had to postpone plans for our annual dinner fundraiser that was scheduled for April. Months later, making the decision to either cancel our annual event or host one online was actually an easy one. It was a unanimous vote to go online, as we weren't going to let anything get in the way of celebrating our park's 20th anniversary. Also, this now virtual celebration is our way to raise critical funds. We depend on you and your partnership to run our programs and to help in the historic preservation of park sites. Today, our goal is to raise $40,000, and I'm excited to announce that we have a matching $20,000 challenge grant in honor of our 20th anniversary. At this time, if you haven't done so already, please go to the link, which is rosie2020.ggo.bid. Or you can find the link by going to our website, rosietheriveter.org. Register and get ready for our pledge drive taking place in a few minutes. We'll let you know how you can help support key programs for our youth, our Rosie the Riveters, and how we keep history alive and relevant in today's world. For each dollar you donate, our anonymous donor will match it 1-to-1. And this link is also for our online auction, so check it out as we have some great items to bid on. So here we are, unconstrained by the four walls of an in-person event. And though we cannot celebrate with you in person, I invite you to sit back, enjoy the show, as we introduce you to our Rosies and park rangers, hear our keynote address by special guest Mark Zemelman of Kaiser Permanente, and bring the park's treasures and sights to you.
Thanks to all of you for joining us today to help celebrate the 20th anniversary of the park and help us raise funds for our programs. The Trust started very small, and as time went on, we ended up having a Rosie Girls program, we remodeled the Maritime Child Care Center, and added other youth programs. It started small, and it's been a labor of love of very many people. Now, Sarah, would you like to introduce the next stars of our show?
Thanks. Now we're going to introduce our Rosie the Riveters, who are certainly the big stars on the screen tonight. These Rosies were the ones that worked in the shipyards, and they have been coming to the visitor center for the last 8 years to tell their story to all the visitors. And we are so thankful and we are so fond of them.
And without further ado, here are the Rosies.
Well, happy 20th anniversary. 20 years, my goodness. When the kids come to the park and they get to see the people and the places where our ships were built, I hope that they realize that Richmond filled a very important part in World War II. We built 747 ships here, right here in Richmond. As a speaker at the Rosie the Riveter Park every week, I enjoy enlightening younger people to what happened during those wartime years. But the older people also get to remember their memories of that special time when we all worked together for a common cause.
First of all, I'd like to say happy anniversary, happy 20th anniversary to everybody, and thank them for all the contributions that they gave me for making my trip to Normandy worthwhile. To see my brother's grave, getting together with him again, it kind of brought closure. Before I didn't know where he was, I didn't know anything about his death. Now I found out all about it. I had never even thought about going to see his grave, so it was a dream, not a dream come true, because I never dreamed about it. But I was so happy. I think it was one of the biggest thrills of my lifetime. Happy 20th anniversary.
Happy 20th anniversary to our park and to our trust, and thanks for supporting Rosie's Girls. We had a chance to show what we could do, and I'm so happy that We Can Do It spirit is alive today and thriving in the women and their work progress and effort that they have put on to carry on what we started.
My name is Agnes Moore, and I was a welder during World War II. My favorite part is seeing how interested the people are in hearing our stories. They just think it's amazing how the job we did, and we don't think it was anything. We just think anybody would have done it, and they would have. This is an important date. It's the 20th anniversary of the park and the trust. And I want to say congratulations to both, and keep up the good work.
Happy 20th anniversary to our park, Rosie the Riveter Park. And I'm so proud to be a member of the staff there. And I will be there as long as they want me. And I work on Saturdays. It is very important for us Rosies that are left. There are not too many left. We Rosies were all the main part, I would say, of the war, because most men were already in the service. The only thing they had left was Rosies, and Rosie sure did the work. And I'm proud of it. God bless America, my home sweet home.
We worked for hours and hours. We did twice work the men did.
The Rosie the Riveter Trust is the official partner with the National Park Service at Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park. While we work with a lot of different people on the park staff, there are two in particular that I would like you to get to know today. One is Tom Leatherman and the other is Kelly English. Tom Leatherman is the park superintendent. He's been with us since 2008 and since 2010 the superintendent of the park. Kelly English is the Chief of Interpretation and Education, and she has been with the park for 6 years. So welcome, Tom and Kelly.
Thanks, Diane. It's great to have the opportunity to talk about Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park. 2020 is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, and I want to begin by thanking all the Rosies for all the work that they did to meet the challenges of their time. 2020 is also the 20th anniversary of the establishment of Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park, and I want to thank the Trust and all the partners in Richmond for building the park to what it is today. This park is a little different than most national parks because we don't own any of the properties that are part of this park, and so we rely on partnerships to help us to preserve and tell the stories of the sites here in Richmond. The Trust and the National Park have built a public-private partnership that's been really important for us to be able to preserve and tell the stories here at the park. Let me just share a few examples of some of the things the Trust has been instrumental in helping us to establish here. First is the Maritime Child Development Center. This center was a building that was built here during World War II and has been restored by the Trust for about $9 million, and now it's a site where we can tell the story of childcare during the war. Another project is about our museum collection. We have over 20,000 items in our museum collection, and we have the opportunity to receive a collection from a private collector, and the Trust purchased the collection and donated it to the park so that we're able to share those artifacts with future generations. Another one of the resources that we preserve here in the park are the oral histories from the people who lived the experiences during World War II. One of those oral histories is told by Betty Reed Soskin, who comes and works in the Visitor Center and tells the story of her time during World War II and the efforts that she made. So in addition to the sites and the museum collections and the stories that we tell, we also operate a visitor center here in Richmond. And the Trust, since the beginning of the Visitor Center, it opened in 2012, the Trust has operated the gift store where we're able to provide items for people to take home with them so that they have something to remember their visit. The Trust and the park also work really closely on programs, and the programs that we do are really important, especially for engaging youth. I want to introduce Kelly English, my Chief of Interpretation, Education, and Outreach, who will talk about a few of those programs.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk about some of the wonderful youth programs that the Trust has helped to support over the years. For over 10 years, Rosie's Girls, our summer program for middle school girls, has helped provide about 25 to 30 young women from Richmond, San Pablo with the opportunity to learn leadership skills and become empowered while also learning about careers in the trades, outdoor industries, as well as STEM industries. Every summer they'd spend about 6 weeks learning and doing activities in this regard, and they culminate with an overnight trip to Yosemite, where they learn even more about how to support each other and be empowered as they grow into young women. Every Kid Outdoors, formerly Every Kid in a Park, is now in its 5th year and focuses on bringing 4th graders from nearby Richmond and San Pablo to experience the national park right in their backyard. Every spring, students come out and learn about homefront history as well as climate change while hiking between the Visitor Center and the Rosie the Riveter Memorial. Without the partnership of the Trust, University of California, Berkeley, and West Contra Costa County School District, it would not be possible to transport all of these classes over here to the park in order for students to have this transformative experience.
We want to thank the Trust for the first 20 years of building the park.
We look forward to continuing to collaborate for many more years to come.
We can do it together.
Hi everyone, I'm Marcia Mather-Thrift, former Executive Director of Rosie the Riveter Trust. I am delighted to be here with you tonight to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the park and to thank all of the incredible sponsors, donors, supporters, and people who made this park happen. This is an amazing park that's one of a kind, really. There is no other park that tells the full Rosie story, and there is no park that pays attention to the World War II story in a certain kind of detail that really is lacking in many other narratives. This is a vital park, it's an incredible institution, and we have so many people to thank for everything that we have in front of us today. The people who founded this park were visionaries. They are people who saw that some slightly run-down historical buildings could be repurposed into an absolutely vibrant cultural center and public education center that would draw people from all over the country and all over the world to learn this story. The park represents values that we all hold dear, and it really, really is important that we keep those alive. The National Park Service staff has been extraordinary in making sure that this park was planned with an eye to every bit of detail that could be included. The people who led that effort are people like Judy Hart, Martha Lee, Tom Leatherman, and so many more. They are the people who deserve our thanks, including Elizabeth Tucker, who helped plan the Visitor Center. The Trust Board of Directors was also a group that was amazing. And they deserve our thanks as well because they put so much care and effort into making the vision of people like Tom Butt, George Miller, Donna Powers, Donna Graves come alive in this park once that visionary founder group stepped aside and let the Trust Board of Directors and the National Park Service staff take over. The other person who really stands out and deserves to be celebrated today is Betty Reed Soskin. Because Betty, who famously did not see herself in the park or her history in the park, set out on a quest at age 85 to tell that story, her story. And she's done it in such a charismatic way that people from all over the country and the world recognize her. She's made sure that Black lives, Black people, people of color all over the country and all over the world who come to visit actually see themselves in this history, actually see themselves in history, period. And actually understand that they can visit a park where their stories are represented and continue to be represented. So we owe Betty a deep sense of gratitude. And I think there are many, many other people to celebrate, all of you who are here for the gala, the 20th anniversary celebration. Also Sarah Pritchard, who is coming in and taking the reins and who brings an amazing amount of talent and skill to the effort for the next decade. So I'm looking forward to watching what Sarah does with all this. I want now for everyone to pop the corks on their champagne bottles. You can see mine in the background, dressed up as Rosie, of course. And I think this will be a fantastic event tonight, and I look forward to seeing all of you again in person in the future. Be well and safe.
Hi, I'm Lincoln Cushing. I'm the historian and archivist for Kaiser Permanente. I want to congratulate everybody on this great event. Working with the National Park has been one of the best parts of my job. I love the staff, I love the mission, I love the Rosies, I love Betty, I love everything about it. It's really important to be able to get the homefront history out It makes Richmond proud, it makes the Bay Area proud, it makes Kaiser Permanente proud. And my uncle worked in the shipyards as a steam fitter, makes me proud. So thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
Good afternoon. My name is Fred Klink, and we're coming to you today from the engine room of the Red Oak Victory historic ship. I'm the executive committee chairman for the ship, and I just want to say that the Red Oak Victory crew is absolutely honored to have the Rosie Trust choose the Red Oak Victory as the location for their online fundraiser. The Rosie Trust and the Red Oak Victory are truly partners in preservation of the history of the World War II legacy of Richmond. And I encourage all of you today who are watching to be very generous with your auction bids and with your donations for this worthy cause. The Red Oak Victory was built right here in the Richmond Kaiser shipyards in 1944. She served during World War II in the invasion of Okinawa and the final liberation of the Philippine Islands. At the end of the war, she was returned to the Maritime Commission and sailed for another 22 years by merchant sailors in both war and peacetime missions before being placed into the mothball fleet. In the mid-1990s, it was discovered that the Red Oak Victory was actually the last remaining ship of 747 vessels built in the Richmond Kaiser yards in World War II. She was therefore conveyed to the Richmond Museum Association, and her mission today is to serve as a museum and a memorial to the shipyard workers who built her and the sailors who sailed her over her long and distinguished career. But the Red Oak Victory today is anything but a static memorial. Some 5,000 people from all over the world visit the ship every year and see this wonderful artifact of Richmond's history. We're not open right now, of course, because of the pandemic, but our all-volunteer crew is still hard at work working on the restoration of the ship. I encourage you to visit our website, see our Facebook and Twitter pages, and maybe even purchase some Red Oak Victory swag from our newly launched online store. When we do reopen, I'd really like to see all of you come visit us here in Richmond Shipyard number 3 for a chance to see firsthand what all the Rosies, Roberts, Wandas, and Walters were able to accomplish when the chips were down in World War II.
Okay, hello, welcome. I'm Deborah Mepos. I volunteer with the Rosie the Riveter Trust because I believe that in honoring the challenges, the changes, the achievements made on the home front during World War II, which were part of a very great inclusive effort, we will help make our future brighter. We are the official nonprofit partner providing support and funding to augment the ongoing new and expanded programs for the park. We have youth programs, a variety of adult education programs, historical collections, including Rosie biographies and artifacts. We provide all kinds of materials at the Visitor Center and in traveling exhibits. We preserve the Maritime Child Development Center. However, we rely on you to make this possible. This is the Fund and Need portion of our 20th anniversary celebration. So go online now and help us to keep these programs going. Go to rosie2020.ggo.bid or just go to our rosietheriveter.org website, or you can just call 510-507-2276 and volunteers are standing by to take your call. And to sweeten the deal, we have a $20,000 challenge grant, so every pledge you make is doubled. So no matter how big or how small, we're going to have more. Way to go, everyone. And I'm pleased to be sitting next to Sarah Pritchard, who's our new executive director. Sarah, tell us why it's so important for this pledge drive to succeed.
Thanks, Deborah. Well, since March, our visitor center store has been closed down due to COVID. And that is a revenue source that we haven't had for all these months. Now, on top of that, every year we have this annual fundraiser. And so this year, it's twice as important to make our revenue goals. and we really do appreciate you being here and everything you do to support us. So today, what I want to do is Deborah and I are going to talk to you a little bit about what your dollars actually translate to in terms of support for the park. Now, I do want to reiterate that Rosie the Riveter Trust is the official partner of the National Historical Park. So we work hand in hand, and their priorities are our priorities, and that's very important. And just like Deborah said, we have a long-time loyal donor who has brought this $20,000 matching grant to us, and we're so thankful, but it also means that we don't want to leave any money on the table. So that's why this Fund a Need portion of the event is so important. Okay, so is everyone ready? Is everyone online? Remember,
can do it.
We can do it, that's right. So what I want you to go to our website, rosietheriveter.org, and you can go and donate there. Or you can go to the rosie2020.ggo.bid, and you can look for us in the Fund a Need. Okay, so number one, we have a beautiful World War II memorabilia collection, over 2,000 pieces. And we bought this from the Vander Porten Family Trust 6 years ago. And this year, it's our last payment. So our last payment is $6,000. If anybody could help us on this, it would be amazing. And this is a collection that is used for travel exhibits, and we also use it in the visitor center. And this is from toy soldiers to tanks made,
into teapots.
It's teapots that look like tanks, right? And also all the posters about the rationing, and it really helped people on the home front understand what was going on overseas. So that's $6,000, and remember, every dollar you give is doubled. The next one is for $2,000, you can help support Rosie's Girls. And Rosie's Girls this year will be a school year program. We were not able to have our summer program due to COVID, but this year we're going to have 15 girls that are going to meet on a weekly basis, and they are also going to have field trips. And this is to expose them to opportunities of what different careers could be. And a lot of them will be meeting women that are in the trades that can teach them what it's like to be professionals, and also for the girls to actually try their hand on welding and carpentry skills. So it's a beautiful program. We've been doing it for years, and it really is the heart of what the trust is involved with. So that one is $2,000. Deborah?
Well, and if that isn't enough, we have for $1,000, you're going to support our work to distribute the Betty Reed Soskin film, No Time to Waste, to teachers in universities, in high schools, and community groups all across the country.
If we don't know where we started, we have no conception of where we are or how we got here.
She is a national treasure, a walking history book.
History is what happens to us every day, that we're all making history.
Betty's a rock star in the Park Service. Everybody will elbow their way through the crowd to get to say hi to Betty.
Thank you, Betty, for your extraordinary service.
I'm not really a historian. I'm sharing my oral history.
She's sort of like Betty Davis, Angela Davis, and Yoda all wrote into one.
She is the country's oldest full-time Park Service ranger, and she works in Richmond at the Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park.
I didn't know about Rosie the Riveter's memorial because it had not freed anyone that I knew.
All the memorials, all the museums in the country are really about wars and the military. How do you look at the awkward parts of the story? It's not a pretty picture.
The history as I had lived it was nowhere in sight, not 1 minute of it.
She's able to talk about these incredibly difficult topics.
I was 27 years old, married, and a mother by the time my slave ancestor died.
And so now she has a platform and a willing co-conspirator in the National Park Service.
It's like I'm running a federally funded revolution.
The opportunity to insert the African American stories.
That's what the park became for me.
The young interpreters are looking to Betty as a leader in learning about their own story.
Because what gets remembered is determined by who's in the room doing the remembering. So many people have lived my history, and so many people have lived your history. And the nation is bereft without those.
It took her the better part of her life to really find her own voice.
I have a deep sense of being in my last decade, that if I don't get it right, I don't have time to do it over.
This is a slice of history that to not learn it is really not to know America.
My story is important because I represent an important part of the American narrative. And when I'm on this stool, my story will not be forgotten.
Today it seems even more important that we have spread the we can do it spirit. Betty's story demonstrates the importance of sharing untold stories in our parks, bringing a more inclusive history that resonates with the issues of our times. Betty has transformed the way that cultural history, especially African American history, has been understood. And we want to plan a discussion guide to go with this that promotes discussions around social justice and therefore makes it much more impactful. So many of us have asked ourselves, well, what can we do to eliminate racism and promote social justice? This is a concrete step, making this film more available. And another concrete step that you can take, you know, $800 will buy a bus ride to take children to the park. And this is part of a national effort. All the national parks across the country are doing every kid outdoors. And so our goals, you know, when they get to the park, they get to go outside, they get to see the visitor center, but our goals are to bring 4,000 children to the park this year and provide bus transportation for 1,000 to 1,200 underserved kids. These kids would not get to the park any other way. Some of these kids, while they live in Richmond, have never seen the Bay, have never been in a national park. So we want to provide informational materials for them, fund curriculum development, give each child a reusable water bottle to teach about conservation. And it's not just an empty bottle. It'll be stuffed with facts and figures and an invitation to the park. So we're not just impacting that one child, we're impacting their siblings, their parents, their grandparents. My God, we got the whole neighborhood. So this is really worth doing. And we're looking at new interactive exhibits like a simulated shipyard, and who wouldn't love that? An exhibit about the migrants' lives that came from so far away to participate in the war effort. Introducing the study of Japanese American incarceration and highlighting social justice issues. They'll learn to study the Bay and the impacts of climate change, vital history of democracy, and really importantly, we're building a whole new generation of park stewards for the national parks. Now, isn't this worth supporting? You know, a bus is $800. If 4 of you give $100 a piece, it's doubled, and you've sent 44 kids to the park. Thank you so much, Anne and Katie, and everyone who's given, and keep on giving. Sarah, tell us what else they could do.
Thanks. So for $500, you can really be supportive of telling stories. So one of the unique and beautiful parts of our historical park is that we have docents that come on a weekly basis, and they're there for the guests, the visitors to meet, and they share their story. And we're talking, these are the Rosies. These are Rosie docents that worked as welders and draftsmen on the home front, and they come on Fridays and Saturdays to tell their story and meet with people. We have Flora and Ben who come, and they were children and they grew up incarcerated during the home front years, and they talk about their story. And we show movies with this. Also, Betty Reed Soskin comes. So when the center is open, which we do hope will be soon, this is something that people get to experience and these stories come alive. Well, one of our goals that we're working on, and we're starting this year, is to create more film that will preserve these stories as we go forward. So our goal is to make 15 to 20 minute small films so that these stories can live in perpetuity, and these people will actually be able to be the ones that are telling their stories in perpetuity versus the film. Now, another wonderful and very, very popular item, I say item, but event.
More like an
yes,
event.
it's an event. I would say so, yes. Now, this is Support the Rosie Rally. Rosie Rally is a wonderful event where thousands of people come every year. They come to the park and they're dressed as Rosie. I'm talking fathers with their daughters. I'm talking 3 generations of mothers, grandmothers, and their grandchildren. I'm talking dogs. I'm talking pigs. I'm talking, it's a crazy bonanza. And you can help us today by supporting the whole marketing, the music, the roll call, but help us because it's a wonderful event. And this year we did it virtually, but next year, maybe we'll break the Guinness Book of World Records.
Again.
Again. We have done it in the past and we were going to do it this year, but we can do it.
We can. And you know what else you can do? Concrete steps. $50 pays for a toolbox for the Rosie graduates, so they have a tangible, physical, useful reminder of all the things they've learned, the life skills, the trade skills, everything. Now you have probably in the last month, you've probably bought some cocktails, some wine, maybe a new outfit, you've gone out to dinner a couple times. You know, if you just did one of those things one time less next month and sent that money in, pledged it, it's going to be doubled and you're building a brighter future. So pledge now. You'll feel good by doing good. So many great programs that the Trust makes possible. So this is my last plug, I promise. Any amount from 1 to 100, it's going to be doubled, it's going to be worth it, and it makes a difference. And because of our generous donor, it's twice as nice, and you know we want that. So you can help preserve the stories of the home front that represent diversity, sacrifice, and celebration. And please, as we move forward to the next segment, join us in making sure the park shines and that they could continue to produce the programming and the projects that make it one of the most unique and important historical parks in our nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your generosity. And now I'm so pleased to introduce our board president, Diane Hedler, as she introduces our keynote speaker, Mark Zemelman. Thanks, everyone.
We are now in the Maritime Child Care Center in Richmond, California. One of the many places that child care was provided for some women during World War II at all the Kaiser shipyards. In 2012, the Rosie the Riveter Trust and the Park Service, along with many other partners, started renovating this building to the tune of $9 million. After it was renovated, the Trust was the owner, and the Rosie the Riveter Trust now has 2 nonprofit tenants in here. And we have this classroom that the National Park Service has put together to show what it was like to be a child in a child care center during World War II. To celebrate the 20th anniversary of the park and the 75th anniversary of World War II, we now have another anniversary to commemorate. It is also the 75th anniversary of Kaiser Permanente's medical care program. Our keynote speaker today is Mark Zemelman, who is General Counsel and Senior Vice President for Kaiser Permanente. Mark has a deep passion for Kaiser Permanente history, and he is also a multi-generational family of Kaiser Permanente members. His father was a founding member of the medical group down in Southern California at the LA Medical Center, and when his daughter was born, She was the 4th generation Zemelman that was a Kaiser Permanente member. So here's Mark.
Prior to World War II, Kaiser Permanente and broad health care coverage didn't exist. The Blue Cross system had been created, but it provided only limited hospital care. Most people avoided calling a doctor until they were very ill and ended up in an overcrowded and under-equipped public hospital. Physicians practiced either in solo practice or in very small specialty groups. Payment was fee-for-service, meaning that providers got paid only when the patient was sick. This resulted in what our founding doctor, Sidney Garfield, called a sick care system, rather than a health care system. A few alternative models emerged. Immigrants coming into the country in the late 1800s, like many lower-income Americans, couldn't afford private practice doctors, so they hired doctors on salary to serve their community. That was the beginning of prepayment. A number of large companies also started hiring their own physicians. Group practice started around the turn of the last century with the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic, because progressive doctors realized that they performed better medicine when working in a group practice. Our founding doctor, Dr. Garfield, got his opportunity to try prepaid group practice on a small scale in the mid-1930s, setting up a tiny hospital in the desert east of Los Angeles to serve workers on the Colorado Aqueduct. He got to try it on a larger scale at Grand Coulee Dam, which was being built by Henry Kaiser's son, Edgar Kaiser. Edgar and Henry worked out an arrangement whereby Dr. Garfield charged 7 cents per worker per day for industrial injuries, 50 cents per family per week for the non-industrial health plan. This meant we were providing coverage for 15,000 workers and their families. The physicians and unions noticed that, due to the incentive of prepayment and the lack of a financial barrier at the time of need, people came in earlier and serious illnesses and deaths declined. Just before the war started in 1941, Henry Kaiser got the contract to build the Liberty ships in Vancouver, Washington, and Richmond, California. The war started, and Henry and Dr. Garfield got the opportunity to try out prepaid group practice medicine on the largest scale in history. In 1942, only a year after the shipyards started running, a well-known medical writer named Paul de Kruff came out from New York to look at the medical care at the Kaiser shipyards. He published a book in 1943 that was serialized in Reader's Digest. De Kruff's book is quite amazing. This was 1943. No one knew whether we were going to win the war. Millions of men were being sent overseas. People were scared to death. And this medical writer comes out from New York and says that the most important thing happening at the Kaiser shipyards is not the war effort. Quote, "The banging, clanging, rhythmic flow of men and steel into a Liberty ship, complete from keel to launching within 5 days, is not the most epochal event at Henry Kaiser's shipyards. In these days, grim with medical neglect, the genial giant Henry Kaiser acts as if shipyard workers are a bit better than ordinary human beings. When they're hurt or when they're sick, every one of the 125,000 welders, riggers, flangers, down to the humblest laborers, all get unlimited medical care by expert groups of doctors in ultra-modern hospitals. It is far ahead of the medical treatment received by the majority of American citizens. It is better, on the whole, than that paid for at fancy prices by the lucky few of our upper economic brackets. It is the Mayo Clinic for the common man." These are some of the physicians at Grand Coulee. Dr. Sidney Garfield, Dr. Cecil Cutting, who became the head of the Northern California Permanente Medical Group, Dr. Wally Neighbor, who started the Northwest program after the war, Dr. Clyde Wiley, and Dr. Raymond Goulet. These doctors came from places where they could have made much more money and have been more comfortable. They chose to go out to a remote work site and operate in a rustic hospital in order to develop the concept of prepaid group practice. As the Liberty ships were being launched in 1942, Hitler bragged that America couldn't build ships faster than they were being sunk. Before the war, it took about 5 months to build a ship of this size. A year into the war, the Kaiser shipyards were producing these ships in 5 days. Kaiser Industries was so efficient that it built 27% of all U.S. ships that entered the war. Who were the people building these ships? With the young, healthy men all going overseas to fight in the war, Henry had to look beyond the traditional workforce to build ships. Henry Kaiser demonstrated that we were better than the racist Nazis, welcoming all races, genders, and the disabled. This leads me to another important and special fact about our organization. Its success was built on diversity. This picture of Gladys Theus comes from President Roosevelt's records because she was recognized as a top welder in the Oakland shipyards. Before the 1940s, the workforce would have been all white males. I love this picture. It's from roughly 1942 of the builders of the ships. There's a lot more going on in this picture than just the fact that women and African Americans are part of the workforce. There was a sense of camaraderie that led this workforce to become the most productive group of shipbuilders in human history. How did Henry create this camaraderie among groups of people who had not worked together before? I think we can find the answer in a story about how Henry dealt with the question of whether to integrate the rooms at the Kaiser hospitals. At that time in the United States, some hospitals did not accept African American patients. If they did, they generally were separated by ward. This wasn't going to happen at the Kaiser hospitals, but then the question came up, what about the rooms? Henry was told that it would be easy to segregate the rooms because there were only 2 beds. Henry said, quote, "You know, if I were a black man and you were going to put me along with everyone else like me on the right side of the hall and you had gold carpets there, and there was that miserable tile I told you not to put down on the left side of the hall, and that's where the whites were placed, I still would not believe you treated me equally." What just happened? One of the richest men in the United States put himself into the shoes of an African American laborer and viewed the world from that perspective. This is more than diversity. This is inclusion, something we're still working on today. Why did a wealthy man like Henry care about ordinary people? Henry grew up poor. He left school in 8th grade to work. He also was influenced by the progressive social movement at the beginning of the 20th century. He believed that the world had enough resources to make everyone comfortable if resources and technology were controlled by people of goodwill. He wanted to build a new world, a world of new power plants, new metals, better technology. It was a world that would benefit everyone. Henry always identified with ordinary people, and it led him to break from all other major industrialists in the United States in the 1930s and support the labor movement. Henry's support is particularly interesting and relevant to today. He was not politically drawn to the labor movement, but the cost of a cubic yard of completed cement at Grand Coulee, which had an organized labor force, was less than the cost of a cubic yard of completed cement at Hoover Dam, which was not unionized. According to his labor advisor, Harry F. Morton, Henry realized that through organized labor, he could both pay people more and get more productivity. This fit his fundamental approach to others. I want everyone to be successful, but it's through hard work and high productivity that this will happen. It's a deal in which we all have skin in the game. You make me successful, and I'll make you successful. Henry hit a deeply American cultural chord with these beliefs. In 2018, a book came out about President Roosevelt's last year, based in part on newly released letters from friends of his. It appears that in 1944, Roosevelt was worried that he might be too sick to run for president again. So he arranged for an FBI background check on the man who he planned to nominate as a backup. That man was Henry Kaiser. It gives you an idea of what a popular hero Henry had become. As the war came to an end in 1945, the Kaiser shipyards and medical system quickly wound down. Membership in the voluntary health plan fell to about 26,000. The workers were moving to other industries, particularly on the West Coast, and the unions, who had never had better health care for their workers, came to Henry and Dr. Garfield and said, "Please keep the medical system going. Open it up to the public." And so in 1945, Permanente Health Plan, a nonprofit trust, was opened to the public. That's when we record our birth date, 1945. The organization began to grow with unions, civil service workers, and faculty associations driving most of that growth. The post-war period was when labor unions made their greatest gains in the United States and greatly improved the lives of working people. In effect, Kaiser Permanente was the medical arm of the labor movement. My parents and many other medical staff at Kaiser Permanente saw themselves as closely aligned to labor. Thank you for letting me spend a few minutes talking about the shipyards. The primary mission of the Kaiser shipyards was to win the war, but their legacy is so much more than that. The shipyards brought tens of thousands of women and African Americans into the skilled industrial workforce. They proved that an integrated workforce could be as productive, indeed more productive, than any other workforce. The shipyards also produced a new healthcare system called Kaiser Permanente, which many consider to be the leading model of care in the United States. The shipyards were not the first place where prepaid group practice was implemented, but they were the first to implement this new model at scale. It was, as Paul de Kruif so eloquently stated, the Mayo Clinic for the common man.
Thank you for participating in this virtual event for Rosie the Riveter Trust today. We really appreciate your participation. We are here filming on the Red Oak Victory Ship in Shipyard Number 3, and we want to thank them for allowing us to use their facilities to do some filming. When you produce an event like this, there are many people that you need to thank. And first of all, I want to acknowledge the Rosie the Riveter Trust Board of Directors and all the people that are part of all these groups I'm going to acknowledge will be on a side screen here, so you'll see who they all are. In addition, we also have a dinner committee that is really well chaired by Ann Nutt, and they have worked really, really hard to produce this event. It has been very, very difficult with COVID to change the direction of how we were planning on doing our event, but they moved quickly and developed what you've seen today, and we are very proud of the work they've done. In addition, our executive director, Sarah Pritchard, and her very able staff, Lindsay, Martha, and Lisa, have all been very, very helpful in making sure today happened. We also have a couple of committees with the Rosie Trust, the Finance Committee and Development Committee, that participated in this event and making sure that this was possible in a variety of different ways. The National Park Service, led by our Park Superintendent, Tom Leatherman, and his staff, have been very, very helpful also. In addition, and you've heard from Tom and Kelly earlier, but without them and their staff and the direction that they use as far as us supporting them for their youth programs, we would not have the programs that we have today for the youth as well as for preservation. Also would like to thank the Rosies and Betty Soskin who have been part of this program today, and our keynote speaker, Mark Zemelman from Kaiser Permanente. There are several sponsors and donors that we need to acknowledge, because without our sponsors and without our donors, all the work that we do here at the Trust would not be possible. And we really, really appreciate all the work they've done to sponsor at varying levels, and all of you that have donated at various levels are really appreciated. Remember, no amount is too small. If you haven't visited our Visitor Education Center, there is a wall that acknowledges all the people who have sponsored our dinner, our events, as well as our membership. And on that wall are the names of the people from the early days that were the launchers of the park, as well as the current donors. If you would like to acknowledge a Rosie or a Homefront worker, contact Sarah Pritchard, because there are ways that we as the Trust have set up for that to happen. Now, for the people who sponsored this event, we had many very generous sponsors, and I'm going to acknowledge two up front. First, at $20,000, at Donna the Director, was Kaiser Permanente's Financial Services and Shared Services Department. At $10,000, Microsoft Corporation. at the Rosie the Riveter level. And then we had other levels that they will be acknowledged on the screen, but I'm not going to go through all the list. Wendy the Welder at $5,000, we had 9 sponsors at that level. Ellie the Electrician at $3,000, we had 4 sponsors at that level. Belle the Burner at $2,000, we had 8 sponsors at that level. And Nellie the Nurse at $1,000, we had 28 sponsors at that level. Thank you to everybody who has contributed. We also have a silent auction that closes at 7 o'clock tonight, so be sure to go online and make a bid for one of the wonderful items in the silent auction. And we also have a fund a need, and you've heard about it earlier, but please consider making a nice contribution to that. We have a $20,000 matching grant for that. So again, thank you. Have a great day, and we really appreciate you participating in our event today.
I want to thank the Trust for 20 years of support.
We hope to see you soon here at the park. Happy anniversary!
For the park!
Happy anniversary!
Greetings from Capitol Reef National Park. This is Sue Fritzke, Superintendent, and I was the Deputy Superintendent at Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park for 7 years, and that park was so important for me from the standpoint of telling the history of women and women being empowered to do the work that they needed to do, which in some ways has broken the ceiling for many of us in these positions now in the National Park Service. And so I so appreciate that legacy that the park tells, as well as the interactions. And that's really one of the most favorite things that I have, is the interactions that I had with the Rosies from World War II, and hearing their stories and their difficulties and their challenges as they faced breaking many of those barriers that they encountered during those early years of World War II. So thank you very much for all that you do, and I miss all of you, and hope you're doing well during these times. Take care. Bye.
Hi, I'm Wendy Ogden from Western Washington State. In 1976, I joined the United States Air Force as one of the first female aircraft mechanics. I owe that honor to the courage of the Rosies. Your legacy made my legacy possible. So thanks, Rosies, and happy 20th anniversary.
The Vital women of Oakland, California thank all of the Rosies for proving to us that we can get through all tough times with cooperation and hard work.